when a black caravan rolls up. My legs stiff froze up. I grab my pound. Told my man eyes open because it might go down.
Hello. Welcome back to yet another video. This is the Alabama team spotlight. Didn't take that long to make because I already had some of it saved from my power rankings video because we had already talked about Alabama on this channel, and I didn't want to do a team spotlight on a team I already covered in my top 15 power ratings. However, I have so much to say about Alabama, and they're such an interesting team this season that I figured I had to double down and talk about them multiple times, and this time going far more in depth than we did on the top 10 power rankings. They were 7th in that video. So let's get up here where I want to begin at. Okay. This is the Crimson Tide spotlight. Let's hop out right into it. Taking a look at last season, they went 11-2, two-loss team, began the season number 1, ended the season at 5, as at one point they got as low as number 9. They went on a 6-game win streak. So up and down, especially for Alabama, to be 9 at one point in the season for Alabama, certainly not the Crimson Tide standards. And right now I have them at number 7 in my personal power rankings. Let's take a closer look. And again, I already covered all this in the power rankings video, but in case you haven't seen that, I'll go through it again. So obviously, we all know week 2, Texas was a nail biter. They won that game by the skin of their teeth thanks to Bryce Young. They dominated competition early on. Utah State 55-0. UL Monroe 63-7. Vanderbilt 55-3. Arkansas, for that matter. I think Bryce Young went down that game. Even Jalen Milroe came in. They beat Arkansas handedly. Closer game, much closer game against Texas A&M. Texas A&M obviously won the year prior. Alabama was able to win that game. But we all know what happened to Tennessee. Game of the year, game of the century, nail biter, classic, instant classic. Tennessee came out with that game and really, for the first time that season, exposed Bama's secondary. I mean, up to that point, the most they had given up was, 26? And they gave up 52 to Tennessee. A legendary performance by both Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt. Following week, though, dominate Mississippi State. So, against SEC competition, not named Tennessee, they washed Arkansas and Mississippi State. Texas A&M was close, but still showing that they are levels ahead of the rest of their SEC West competition until they lost to LSU. Went to overtime. Mason Taylor, game-winning catch, I believe. And at that point, all hope was lost. There was really no hope of Bama getting back into the playoff. I know it was a discussion at the end, should they get in over TCU? No way in hell should they have. But Alabama, they took that loss to LSU, killed their season. LSU ended up winning the SEC West, and Bama was left to lick their wounds at the end of the season. Beating Ole Miss closely. If they would have lost that game to Ole Miss, shit would have hit the fan. But they did squeak out a win against Ole Miss. But that's 2 close games from last season against A&M and Ole Miss. Austin Peay is Austin Peay. Iron Bowl, they won in dominant fashion, and then they blew out poor old Kansas State in the Cheez-Its Bowl. So, an 11-win season, most teams would be extremely happy with that. Alabama was not happy whatsoever because not only did they miss the college football playoff and would therefore go back-to-back years without winning the national championship, they didn't even make the SEC championship. So really just a disaster of a season. For an Alabama team that I predicted was going to win the national championship, that was the year last season. Will Anderson, Bryce Young. A lot of people in Bama were pointing to that year as being, okay, this is our year. We are just the best roster by a mile, which I agreed by before the season. But man, they could not get it done. 3-point loss and a 1-point loss, for that to be, your only 2 losses is tough, man. Taking a look at the numbers offensively, they were very good. 11th in total yards, a top 20 passing offense, and a top 30 rushing offense. That's a very good combination. 4th in points per game, 41.1. Did not let people get to Bryce a whole lot. 45th in the country. A lot of people would say their offensive line was a problem last season, but, it's middle of the pack. It wasn't, too bad, I'd say. 16 turnovers, certainly more than we typically see at Alabama. They're usually a lot less than that. 37th in the country as far as turnovers offensively. And then defensively, they were good. I mean, top 20 defense, inarguably, really, 13th in yards per game, 17th in passing yards per game, even though obviously we know what happened against Tennessee. 36th in rushing yards allowed, certainly a little worse than they would like to be, but top 10 in points per game, only 18.1. However, I'd like to point out they did play Utah State, UL Monroe, and Austin Peay, which scored a combined 7. You could even throw Vanderbilt in there. So the defensive stats, I'd say, were certainly a little bit skewed. I mean, when they played guys like Auburn, Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee, Arkansas, we saw, I think, that they were more of a, in the mid to high 20s there. But nonetheless, top 10 in points per game allowed. And then tied for 16th in sacks per game. But obviously, losing guys like Will Anderson is going to hurt that number a lot going into next season. Taking a look at the guys they lost. And this is my biggest concern with Alabama, because this might be, maybe besides TCU, because Alabama has a much more solid infrastructure than TCU has. But just if we're going straight talent lost, Alabama lost more than any other team in college football, inarguably, I would say, because they lost Heisman quarterback. They lost their starting running back. They lost 2 pass catchers. Keep in mind here, a wide receiver room at Bama, which is not up to Bama standards. They lost 2 pass catchers, really 3, if you include Jahmyr Gibbs. 3 pass catchers from already lacking receiver room. 3 defensive linemen, which combined for, let's see here, how many sacks did Will Anderson have? So let me see here. Oh, shit, sorry. So 16 and a half sacks lost. 16 and a half sacks lost between DJ Dale, Byron Young, and Will Anderson. That's tough. And then, I mean, they lost 2 linebackers, Henry To'oTo'o and Jalen Moody. What's that, 21 sacks, guys? 21. Brian Branch, 24 sacks lost from last season's team. That's almost 2 a game. That is, man, I don't know how you replace that. That is a lot. But I already mentioned Henry To'oTo'o, Eli Ricks, DeMarco Helms, Brian Branch, both their starting safeties, guys. Brian Branch was one of their most important players, one of the most impactful players in the whole country. Also losing Jordan Battle. I mean, they lost players at every single level. They also lost, I didn't even put him in here, Tyler Steen, I believe, a starting tackle, went to the Eagles. So at every level, you're losing talent. It's just, I don't know how they're going to be able to replace all of this. And I don't think they are. I mean, this is really a rebuilding year. Any other team in the country that loses this much talent, we would say it's a rebuild year. But for some reason, people want to try and gloss over it for Alabama and pretend that they're still in contention. There's no way you can lose this much and just bounce back the next season. Taking a look at what they have left on offense, and look, I don't want to try and come across as a Bama hater in this video, because I know that's how it's going to look at times. But I'm giving Alabama a lot, and I mean a lot, of leeway here, because I'm assuming the starter at quarterback is going to be Jalen Milroe. By all reports, that's who it's going to be, and I'm assuming he plays good. And you'll see in this video, when it comes to the prediction aspect, I'm assuming that they're going to have good quarterback play. Not great, obviously, not comparable to what they've had, but I'm assuming that whoever has that quarterback this season is going to be, at bare minimum, very solid. That could not happen. They could just have a bad quarterback this season. And to go from Heisman level to bad, no team can survive that level of a drop-off. I'm sorry. Taking a look at the running back room, this is very important. Jason McClellan, I have to assume, if you're a Bama fan, you have to hope that he is the guy. And he's going to have to take a jump, like a Brian Robinson type jump, from just being a role player to being a star. Because Alabama, and this is going to be the theme of this whole video really, they have to change the way they play, because they do not have a Heisman level quarterback, and they don't have the weapons in the receiver room. They can't air the ball out, even if they wanted to. They don't have the talent. So they're going to have to pound the rock this season. And Jason McClellan, unless they want to just do running back by committee, which they may have to, we're going to need to see Jason McClellan step up and be an Alabama #1 running back. I don't think he can, but I mean, if he would have put up, let's just say 1,200 total yards and 15 touchdowns, they would need that at bare minimum, because Roydell Williams, he's elevated up on the depth chart now. He's going to need to be very productive. And then Justice Haynes, I'm even assuming here that a four-star true freshman is going to come into the SEC and be productive day one, guys. I'm having to I have to cut a lot of slack here. I already mentioned it, but the wide receiver room, this is not an Alabama wide receiver. I'm sorry. You cannot be wide receiver room or wide receiver sorry, and then back-to-back years have Jermaine Burton be your number one receiver. I'm sorry. It just doesn't cut it. This is a bad. I'm not going to say bad. I'm not going to say bad. It is it's the worst wide receiver room I've ever seen at Alabama, me personally. And it may even be worse than last season because are we really expecting? I think Ja'Corey Brooks is good. I think he's solid. Jermaine Burton, he thought grass was greener on the other side when he left Georgia. It has not been for him. He has been pretty disappointing. And are we going to expect these two guys up here to improve statistically when they throw the ball far less than they're going to from last season? I actually think both these guys, maybe one of them has like 750, maybe 800 yards, but I think at least one of these guys' stats are going to drop because they're not going to throw the ball as much. Kobe Prentice, I don't expect they're not going to throw the ball as much. Keep in mind, on the right side of your screen, this is what these guys were doing with Bryce Young at quarterback. They may have bad quarterback play this year. Expect all these guys' numbers, production to just fall off a cliff, possibly. So it's going to be rough. I don't know how they're going to be able to throw the ball when they get behind in games. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. Defensively, still an extremely talented defense here. I expect this defense to be at least top 30 in the country, which you could say for Bama is not very good, especially when it's going to have to cover up a couple holes on the offensive side of the ball. They need Dallas Turner to be a first-round pick. And by a first-round pick, I mean 10-plus sacks, 20-plus QB hits. He did not produce what they were hoping for last season at all. I mean, his freshman season was far more productive than last season. This is the thing now. With Will Anderson gone, this guy put up 4 sacks with Will Anderson taking up double teams every play. With Will Anderson gone, I mean, is he just going to turn into they need him to just transform. Like, he needs to level up. And I'm assuming he is. Again, I'm making a lot of assumptions here that benefit Alabama. If he doesn't step up, if he gives us 6.5, 7 sacks next season, that's not enough. It's just not enough. I mentioned they lost, 26 sacks to the NFL? You got to replace that somehow. And if you don't, then hell, you're just not going to stop the pass as well, and you're going to get burnt like you did against Tennessee. Obviously, Kool-Aid McKinstry, the number one corner on a lot of people's draft boards early. They need him to lock down other teams' wide receiver ones. They just need him to. A couple more guys worth mentioning: Malachi Moore, Jalen Key. I don't have him here, but I mean, it's Caleb Downs, I believe, at safety. He's probably going to be a starter day one. They lost both their safeties. Caleb Downs getting a lot of hype as a true freshman. They need him to live up to that hype. Chris Braswell, I believe, moving as a full-time pass rusher. It's just, it's a rebuild year. I'm not afraid to call it what it is for Alabama, but the roster as it stands right now is not good enough on offense or defense. I mean, I already mentioned they lost Henry To'oTo'o, Brian Branch, Will Anderson. They lost the number one player, I think, at every single level of their defense. So, I mean, they're playing with leftovers, respectfully. It's just, I don't know. And this is the real breakdown I want to get to. Of their offense, let's take a look at Alabama's offense, right? Going back 5 years, the last 5 years, and I even could have went back more because I think Jalen Hurts in 2017 and 2016, for that matter, I think he was better than what they're going to have this season. So I could have went back even further, but let's start at 2018, Tua's first season. 4,854 passing yards, nearly 3,000 rushing yards, 85 touchdowns for Alabama that season. 2019, Tua got hurt a little bit, dropped down to nearly, 44,500 yards. And then 2,200 rushing yards, 76 touchdowns. That was their down year, 2019. 2020, bounce back, Mac Jones year. National championship, Devonta Smith, Najee Harris, 79 touchdowns, over 7,000 total yards of offense. 2021, Bryce Young Heisman season, over 5,000. Guys, 2 years ago, this team threw for over 5,000 yards. 2 years ago. 2,258 rushing yards, 69 total touchdowns. Last season, Bryce Young missed some time. Wide receiver room was not good, not Bama standards. 36, 60 yards, nearly 2,600 rushing yards, 63 touchdowns. So let's just take a look here, guys. Passing yards. It went up. It went up. It peaked in 2021. What's that? 1,400 yards, guys. In one season, they threw for 1,400 less yards than they did the previous season. Expect that to go down. I wouldn't be surprised if it's under 3,000, which would be shocking. Just take a look here. The average in these 5 years is over 4,000. I would not be shocked if it's under 3,000 this season. I would expect it almost. And then rushing yards, they're going to need close. They're going to need close to that 2018. They're going to need close to 3,000. Certainly. I mean, I would expect over 2,900, 3,000 might be attainable. But I mean, and they were playing in college football playoff and national championship, so maybe not. But I mean, certainly more than they did the previous season. They need well over 2,800. And then the touchdowns, I mean, I think that's going to continue to go down. I mean, 2018, 85, 76, 79, 69, 63. Next season, I expect less than 60. They've just got worse and worse. And this is the point of this graphic, really. Take a look at all these quarterbacks. All these quarterbacks. Is Jalen Milroe, or hell, for even that matter, is Buckner or Ty Simpson, are they better or even comparable to any of these quarterbacks on here? No. So the worst quarterback play they've gotten over 5 years. Is Jason McClellan. Is he better or at least comparable to any of these running backs? No. So the worst running back play they've gotten over 5 years. Wide receiver room, I'm not even going to mention. The worst wide receiver room they've had in nearly a decade, I'll say. Maybe even more. I don't know. I can't think of a time that they've had a worse receiver room than this. So what I'm trying to say is, across the board, they are the weakest they've been in a long, long time. And it is okay to acknowledge that. With that being said, what should be expected? This is still Alabama. And I don't like giving people credit when they haven't done anything this season yet. But it is Alabama. I cannot discredit Nick Saban. He's the greatest coach ever. So he gets that level of respect. Even though for any other team, I'd probably be calling this a 4 or maybe even a 5-loss team with their schedule. But let's take a look at it. Worst case scenario for Alabama. The offense just can't adjust. One season, it's too drastic. They still try and pass the ball. It's unsuccessful. Multiple quarterbacks. The quarterback battle continues into the season, which is just a recipe for disaster. Obviously, heavy turnovers, even more than last season, maybe even approaching the 20s. With them not being able to throw the ball effectively, they're not able to run the ball as effectively as they normally would. So the run game is hurt there as well. No number one receiver, that's just obvious. I mean, nobody, takes that job, and they continue to struggle. Pass rush falls off with Will Anderson. This is a worst case scenario. This is almost expected. I do not think they're going to be anywhere close to what they were last season as getting after the quarterback. Secondary concerns are not addressed. When you lose both your safeties and multiple corners in one off season, I can only expect them to get worse there. Texas winning in week 2, disaster. Losing the SEC West back-to-back years, disaster. And this would be 3 straight years where Alabama does not win a national championship. In back-to-back years where they miss the playoff, miss the SEC championship game. I think that would result in a 10-3 record, 6-3. Well, actually, this would be what would that be? 6-2 in conference play, I believe. I think 6-2, and then missing the SEC championship and the college football playoff. That's the worst case. Honestly, I might have been a little generous here. Now that I'm thinking about it, looking over it, there may be a room for a 4th loss in there. Don't quote me. Most likely, though, offenses run heavy first and protects the football. They limit turnovers because of their change of style of football. One quarterback is chosen, whoever it is, and they stick with him the whole year to provide that consistency. Doubling down, running the ball more, less turnovers. Common sense. Top 3 in the country in rushing. I think they're going to have to be. If they need to win games by running the football, they have to specialize in running the football. Wide receiver by committee is effective, but still, not having a number one, you need one. You need a guy that's going to take the top off the defense and just, they don't have a cornerback who can cover. I don't think they're going to have that. And they need to win two out of the, I mean, yeah, they're going to have to win two out of these four. Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee. You need to win two of those. Probably three if you want to have any sort of hope at the playoff. But, I mean, in this scenario, most likely, I think they're going to win two out of these four. And then they're going to hover between 6 and 9 all year, I think. I mean, they're going to start the season. I think they're fifth right now, or are they fourth? I think they're fourth right now in the AP poll. But I think, for me personally, they're going to hover between 6 and 9 all season. Best case scenario, if I'm ignoring the many, many flaws here, what can they do? Well, they're one of the best running teams in the country, and I mean like top 3. Jalen Milroe breaks out, has a Jalen Hurts type season. I think best case scenario, Jalen Milroe plays like a young Jalen Hurts. Obviously not Oklahoma Hurts, but Alabama was able to win a championship with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. I think Jalen Milroe can be maybe 90% of Alabama Jalen Hurts. 4 to 5 less turnovers than last season could very much so help them. Top 5 in the country in running the football. They need that in this situation. Ja'Cory Brooks or Jermaine Burton, they need one of those guys to step up. If they have a real chance this season at winning anything, they need a number one receiver, and it's going to have to be one of those two guys. And like they're going to need to win 3 out of these 4. I already mentioned Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee. I think they have LSU, Tennessee, and Texas all at home, right? Because all 3 of those were on the road last season, weren't they? So I think all 3 of those will be at home. So they need to win all 3 of those. Or, well, including Ole Miss. They're going to need 3 out of those 4 and hover around the college football playoff all year. So in this scenario, I would have them going 12-2, making and losing the SEC championship to Georgia, fringe playoff team, and if they don't make the playoff, I think they'd win a New Year's Six game. But still, this is the thing. Best case scenario, I don't think they make the playoff. Because let's break it down here. If for them to make the playoff, they would either have to win the SEC championship. I don't think they're beating Georgia. That's not a reality to me. So that's off the table. And the other scenario is going undefeated in the regular season. Because if they take one loss of these 4 right here, Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee, if they lose one of those games, and I already consider them losing to Georgia a foregone conclusion if they make the SEC championship, I don't think they're making the playoff at 12 or at 11-2 for that matter. I don't think they're letting a 2-loss team in the playoff. So they'd have to either sweep these 4 teams right here and lose to Georgia, or 1-loss regular season and beat Georgia. I don't think either of those possibilities are realistic here. So now, my favorite part of these team spotlights. What do I think? What do I think Bama's season's going to look like? Let's break it down. Middle Tennessee week 1, easy money. Bama is not Miami. Easy money. Texas in week 2, I have Texas beating Alabama. It is my prediction. I think Texas got better. Bama got worse. I understand completely. Home field advantage. I think it'll be a narrow game like last time, but I do have Texas beating Alabama in week 2. Their first loss, not a conference loss. So, obviously, SEC championship hope still alive there. USF, body bag. Ole Miss, week 4, certainly a losable game, certainly. I think it'll be close, but I do have Alabama pulling that one off. Close, though. Next week, Mississippi State. I think they're worse than Ole Miss, defensively, certainly. I have Alabama taking that one a lot easier, double-digit win. Week 6, A&M. I think for the 3rd straight year, it's going to be a close game. A&M has an amazing pass defense, best in the country last season. So it's going to be physical. It's going to be very physical. But I do have Alabama narrowly taking that one in week 6. Week 7, Arkansas. I still don't trust the Arkansas defense anymore. So I do have Alabama taking that one as well. So we got 4 straight SEC games there. Technically 7 straight, but 4 straight wins for Alabama. Tennessee. I have them losing to Tennessee back-to-back years. Why do I have them losing to Tennessee back-and-back? I think Tennessee will be able to score the ball on Bama, not as effectively as last year, but I think they're going to be able to put up points on Alabama. And I do not think I don't trust Bama's offense as much as I trust Tennessee's offense, because I think it's going to be a shootout, and I think Tennessee's going to have the edge there, easily going to have the edge in a shootout. So I have Tennessee going into Tuscaloosa, and I have Bama losing 2 home games back to back. Not just that, because after a bye week, I also have LSU coming in there. This is a very I could much easily see LSU losing to Bama than I could Tennessee. So if you want to give this game to Bama, I'd understand it. And maybe because of that, probably because of that, they would make the SEC championship game. So it's very possible that they make it. But I do have LSU. I just think they're a better team this year. Across the board, I give LSU the edge almost everywhere. But I do have Bama losing that one. Close to all the I don't think Bama's losing double digits to anybody. Maybe Tennessee, but I think it's going to be all close games. Kentucky, that might be a lot closer. After, coming off Tennessee and LSU, people may overlook Kentucky. Kentucky's going to have a very good offense next season, guys. They're going to have a very good offense. I think that game is not going to be as easy as most people are probably thinking right now. Chattanooga is Chattanooga. And then Iron Bowl, I think, certainly closer than last season. I think Auburn has improved with the new head coach, but I do have Bama taking that one. And then I do think they're going to play a New Year's Six game. No skill in predicting who they'd play in a bowl game, but let's just say it's Penn State. If Bama played Penn State, that could go either way, but let's just say Bama takes it so they don't have a 4-loss season oh my God, for God's sake, 4? Can you imagine that? If they went 9-4, oh my God. But yeah, I think 10-3, miss the SEC championship back-to-back years, win a New Year's Six game, but not win a national championship for 3 straight years. Unheard of in the Nick Saban era of Alabama. That's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you. If you've made it to this point, thank you for watching. I appreciate the support so much. We're getting closer and closer to the start of the college football season. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.
It's out the motherfucking back. Right out the niggas don't know how to act.